Hello, bright souls. This is Pierre from Petra Zuri, and I'm here to give you an update on Donald Trump's astrology for June 2021. It is the 5th of June 2021 when I'm recording this, and I wanted to especially talk about June for him since, of course, it is his birthday. And astrologically speaking, we'd say that it's his solar return. And he's got a lot of new cycles starting. So I've called this a new cycle of leadership and determination, and I hope you'll see why by the time I get to the end of this video. So as I mentioned, he's going to have several new cycles starting this month. First, one that everybody's participating in, which is the solar eclipse. So we're going to renew issues around information and beliefs, information versus beliefs, as I talked about in a previous video concerning the lunar eclipse a few weeks ago. And then with his birthday, he has what are known as Time Lords. So everybody gets a new Time Lord for the year starting with their birthday. So his perfection Time Lord is going to be Mars. So this should be pretty interesting since the past year his Time Lord was Venus, which is a much more peaceful type of Time Lord. And then he has another Time Lord, which we don't usually mix these timing techniques, but I think this is significant because in another system called Fedaria, he has a new Time Lord, which is going to be the Sun. And so I'll talk about these three new cycles as I go through this video. So let's go to, since I'm starting this video on June 5th, let's go to June 10th. So already we have Mercury retrograde going on. On June 10th, we have a solar eclipse, which is also a new moon. So with the new moon, we have the start of a new cycle. It's kind of obviously, it's a period where the moon is not particularly visible. What we would see typically with a regular new moon is that it's just the start of a new cycle. We had finished the old cycle, and then when the moon and the sun come together, there's a melding of intuition and consciousness. So whatever the internal instincts are can meld with what the conscious thinking is. So I'd say that he could sort of coming into a period where that's happening for him. The things he's thinking about and what his instincts are coming together. But with the eclipse, what we have is that the moon is blocking out the sun. So in that case, the moon, here we have the moon and the sun conjunct together. The moon is blocking out more of the conscious, logical thinking and allows us to sort of go more from instinct, go more from emotion, sort of that deep habitual kind of place. And historically, eclipses are thought to be bad things or anti-life, even because the sun is being blocked out. And there's sort of a different type of energy on an eclipse day. It can be a time where there's a sudden things that seemed impossible are now made possible. A break in the previous cycle, a change in things. And particularly for the solar eclipse, I hope that's what I said before, a solar eclipse, it's a chance for a new start. So we've been having these solar eclipses over the past year. So for Trump, we would look at what was happening at each of these previous solar and lunar eclipse cycles. And for him, the last biggest cycle was around November and December. So there are a lot of issues that may have culminated a couple of weeks ago with the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius that are now ready for the new start with this solar eclipse in Gemini. Now, associated with, he's having the solar eclipse in Gemini in his 11th house. So he may now be ready to make a new start in his drive to lead the people. I believe I talked in a previous video concerning him that he really has, because of his North Node in the 11th house, he has a craving to lead the people, to communicate with the people, to talk to and, use technology with the people. That's why I think he really loves this social media. There could be a lot of, he could have a lot of new information, new ideas on communication and technology. Now, during this period of time, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but Mercury, as I mentioned, is retrograde, and it's actually conjunct the sun and the moon. So there is this new beginning is infused with ideas of communication, lots of thinking, lots of maybe multitasking, how to communicate with the people. In retrograde, though, there's probably a lot of internal processing going on with him, how he wants to do this communications, maybe not even expressing exactly what he wants to do quite yet, but there's a lot of internal processing in that area. Let's see. There may be a break in the regular pattern related to his communication with networks and groups of people. So we know that he's been considering a new social platform. So maybe something suddenly happens with that. And then he may have an internal focus on how to communicate to his friends, groups, associations, how to communicate about hopes, dreams, and aspirations. It seems to me that this may be the start of a reactivation for him and increased communications with groups and networks, and perhaps in a way that nurtures self and identity for him and maybe for others as well. Like I said before, at this time when Mercury is retrograde, he may be reviewing old things, old ways of communicating, old habits, old ways of interacting, rather than coming out with them quite yet at this point. So he may be holding back a bit on what he really wants to express. But whatever thoughts and any communications that he does have may be full of creativity, maybe inspirational and pulled from a higher consciousness level. As I mentioned before in a video about his natal astrology, he has Mercury in the 12th house, which is usually associated with higher consciousness, messages from spirit, that kind of thing. He may also be using words of togetherness and cohesiveness, and he perhaps will be quite busy amongst the people. Let's see. He may sort of be retracing the steps in messaging, how he wants to communicate, how he's negotiating deals and contracts. And many of these new ideas, for now, he may be keeping to himself, probably until Mercury then goes forward again and comes out of retrograde. There's probably going to be a continued time of working behind the scenes at home. He's got Mars here in the 12th house, and that's kind of a place of rest and retreat. So he may be really busy at home, but everybody may not see it. And there may be a bit of agitation while he's at home and in solitude. He may want to act on something right now, but really just sort of needs to keep a hold of it until a little bit later. So now moving into, let's go on to June 12th. So Saturday, June 12th, we have transit Mars moving into Leo. So Mars is going to come out of the 12th house, out of hiding, and into the first house, which is where we express our personality, how we interface with the world, how we start to do things. So he's going to be feeling more energized, have more drive and determination, and maybe even feel, just more energy in his body. Like, my sense of him has been that he may not have had as much energy as he's used to having, and probably for quite a long time. So he's going to move into this area where his mindset, even his appearance, his vitality, and how he faces the world is going to be fueled a bit more by this fiery planet of Mars. So we may see again more aggressive, energized, sort of irritating personality, because this is the start of his Mars return. So natal Mars resides in his first house in Leo. So there is going to be more of a playful activity with him, but again, this more aggressiveness, perhaps even divisiveness again, that we have not, I don't think we've seen for a while. He may need to really take care that, look at his body, make sure that there's not a lot of inflammation. He maybe doesn't have a whole lot of issues with that, because he does have Pluto in the first house, which is extremely regenerative. But again, Mars is coming back in here. There could be issues around that. So he wants to really take care of that. And then let's see. Again, everybody beware that we could see that more aggressive Trump coming back, because Mars is coming home in his plant, in his house, that has to do with how he interfaces with the world, what his style is. That is his style. He has a very martial style. All right, so then we move on to, actually, his birthday is June 14th, right? But astrologically speaking, his solar return, when the sun comes back to the point it was when he was born, his solar return is actually going to be on June 13th. So the day before his birthday, we may see we may see something more from him even on the day before his birthday. So again, I wanted to talk about a little bit about these Time Lords. So in Fedaria, for the past 2 years, I'm not going to take the time to go through what is Fedaria. Just know that there's a ruling planet that we all have for periods of time under this system of Fedaria. So for the past 2 years, from June 14th, 2019 to June 14th, 2021, his Time Lord has been the South Node, which has possibly given the flavor. So these Fedaria Time Lords give the flavor for life. So it kind of gave him a flavor of seeming losses, releasing, a pouring out of self, and sort of a refinement of his life. Probably noticing a lot of losses, and like a general period of spiritualization for him over the past 2 years. And now when we move into this period of time, and it's actually going to be a period of the next 10 years, he will have the sun. The sun is going to be his Fedaria Time Lord. And the interesting thing about that is that the sun rules his first house, the first house of self and personality, habits and tendencies. And so it should bring sort of more of a stabilizing force to the general theme of his life. More of a leadership emphasis, more confidence, expressiveness, perhaps more inspirational, because the sun, not only being his Fedaria Time Lord right now, it is the leader of his chart. It is his, it rules his first house, which is an important planet for him. So that is sort of the new cycle of leadership that I mentioned before. New cycle of being seen, which is also something that Leo rising likes to be. So I see this as sort of a positive development for him in his cycles, because moving from the south node of so much sort of sense of loss and maybe draining kind of feeling, and into a place where you have the sun, which is self-regenerating. It sheds light and warmth and guidance. It's sort of a central force. Having that as a theme in his life has got to be something that would be positive for him in the next period. Now, the next Time Lord I want to talk about is Mars. We see Mars here, and on this solar return chart, Mars is here. And so Mars is a planet of, well, it's a planet of energy and aggression and drive and decisiveness. And it can be dry, so it can break things up, and a lot of people do see him as decisive. But it gives energy. It talks about one's motivation. So the next year for him, with Mars as his perfection Time Lord, perfection year Time Lord, we could see a lot more energy, especially because Mars, well, it starts out on his solar return. Mars is in the first house. Natally, he has Mars in the first house. And so he will probably come off a bit more energetic, a bit more aggressive, a bit more driving. There may be more tension, a bit more, his style may be more assertive and aggressive this year. The previous year, Venus, which is more about peace and cohesiveness and bringing things together, we can sort of see in his nature that Venus has been strong. So when we see this switch to Mars, it'll be interesting to see if we see a little bit different approach, a little bit of the old Donald Trump that we used to see. This perfection year, where Mars is leading the year for him, it's bringing up issues. The issues that he will be focused on this year have to do with home and family, the past, lineage, privacy, because Mars, this is the perfection year home. Mars rules this house. Mars also rules the 9th house of religion, spirituality, international things, the big picture, the connection to the larger framework. And then since Mars is in the first house, we'll probably have an emphasis on his self and how he presents himself to the world. So he may be dealing with things at home, things overseas, perhaps his own, again, dealing with these issues of belief, spirituality. There could also be something for him involving, just because of his position in society, involving the military, war. There could be, battles. Great passion and drive and sharpness over the next year, both at home and probably overseas. And and in expressing his beliefs and faith. And he possibly have a decrease in the patience that we've seen from him over the past little while, like I mentioned before. So this year is Mars, maybe more angry, more assertive, more impulsive, and potentially a little bit destructive. So at a minimum, we may see him cutting things away, because Mars is also about cutting. Okay. When we get to June 16th, we have Mercury retrograde conjunct natal Uranus. So we may see some unconventional, spontaneous communications in groups, perhaps some groundbreaking thoughts about how to communicate and network with technology. But since Mercury is retrograde, I'm thinking that he may be keeping these ideas to himself at this point by June 16th. And perhaps we see an expression of that outwardly later when Mars goes forward and comes back over Uranus again. Now, when we get to June 20th, Jupiter goes retrograde in his 8th house. And Jupiter is a beneficial planet, especially for him, because he's a daytime baby. But what we might have is sort of just a shift, and this may not be something any of us see, but maybe some internal growth around wisdom, optimism, and faith in the areas of psyche and sort of taboo, hidden things. There may be something, maybe he feels a little bit less expansive in the areas having to do with shared resources, taxes, combined resources, or something like that. This may not be something that we actually see outwardly for him, but it's something, that he could be experiencing during that time. We get to June 21st. We have transit Venus conjunct natal Saturn. So there could be some seriousness around hidden or behind the scenes relationships for him. This is a connection that he's used to, this Venus conjunct Saturn, this sort of restriction around relationships, a feeling of loss of loyalty around relationships, not being connected. He's very serious about his relationships, but this may be a time where he's reviewing the connection to some relationships we may not know about, or some hidden relationships, and it's time to review whether to break those relationships or recommit to them. This could relate to somehow to how his standing in the world, work in the world, maybe his some sort of writing, somehow his relationship to the community and communication deals. There may be a temporary restriction on his finances or his ability to communicate with the community. Let's skip ahead to June 27th. So June 27th, we have transit Mercury, again, coming conjunct natal Uranus. So you remember I mentioned back, I think it was the 16th, that he maybe was having some unique ideas about how to communicate with people, how to communicate with the groups and associations and that kind of thing. So here, when Mercury comes forward again, it may be that he actually comes out with those ideas that he was having back then, if he didn't already express them. This time, and it may be something so unique, groundbreaking, maybe new ways of marketing and selling things, or we may have some shocking news on June 27th. June 27th is a day to really look at, though, because also on that day, Mars comes conjunct his natal Pluto in the 1st house. So there could be some sense of energy-fueled power and control coming from him in his style, his tendencies and mindsets. There's a lot of power in Pluto, and Mars is going to be right there fueling it back up. He may have a compulsion to transform things that's going to be supercharged. He may also have a lot of physical energy. There could be a rebirth of a drive and determination in how he meets the world. But I'm interested to see this period of time because a lot of people already react to his Mars rising. And with Mars coming back here and stimulating Pluto, it'll be interesting to see what type of control and power issues might come up. He'll need to be really careful about being overly aggressive or controlling or overly abrasive. But he may have extra energy to change things in the home, maybe even overseas, or to change his core beliefs. So this is a period of time where he may feel just super energized with Mars there. He'll have extra power to unearth things and to dig deep and to uncover secrets. He may really be into some investigation that he's doing at that time. And he may have a great feeling of renewal. So this is a very short transit, this Mars conjunct Pluto here. It's only 2 days of intensity. But since this is his Mars, we call it Mars return because Mars is coming back to where it was when he was born. So since this is his Mars return sign, this will be a period while Mars is here in his first house where he'll likely be on fire and will feel a renewed sense of vitality and drive and energy and aggression. And so we might see all of this as things go along. One of the possibly good things about this period of time, though Venus is not as strong in his chart, Venus is also entering the first house. So it could be that while he's feeling all of this intense power, control, and aggression and sort of spontaneous speech and communication, we could have Venus here kind of giving a little salve to his personality, to bring a bit of sweetness and harmony and peace and maybe, sense of creativity and tenderness to the things that he's doing and saying in the world. Let's hope so, because I think he's going to be feeling pretty energized during this period of time. Something I don't think he's probably felt in a while. So let's skip on to June 29th, where we're going to have the sun conjunct his natal, the transiting sun conjunct his natal Mercury. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, but when 8 days prior to this, the sun will have entered the 12th house. So he may actually, even though he's got Mars going on, giving him all this energy, he may actually feel a bit like retreating at home, self-protective. And then by the 29th of June, he may be speaking a little bit more in a leadership style kind of way instead of this Plutonian, forceful control, this Plutonian and martial control type of way that he was in the past few days before the 29th. So he may be settling down a bit as Mars moves on from Pluto and Mercury moves on from Uranus. So yeah, maybe he stirs things up leading up to the end of the month and settles down a little bit towards the end. And that's what I have for Donald Trump for the month of June. So overall, again, I say he's starting some brand new cycles that will be energizing for him. He will have a renewed sense of leadership and determination, especially in the area of the leadership of the people that he craves, and also just in how he feels. I just think that for this long period of Fidaria, Time Lord with the South Node, he may not have felt very well, and especially this last period of a year so far of these eclipses on his moon and his sun, he may not have felt all that great either. And so now we're coming in with Mars to help to stir things back up. And I'll look forward to seeing what happens this month with these news cycles starting for Donald Trump. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you next time. Have a nice day, evening, or morning, bright souls. See you soon.